Okay, we are live. Hello friends, I Joyashree Dey, Project Lead for Story Project 13 by www.tellmeyourstory.bay. Welcome you to the fourth episode of Gender Stereotyping series. I'm privileged to have with us tonight Dr. Protim Sharma, Dr. Somrita Ganguly this evening, and we are going to discuss today blue is for men and pink is for women, the stereotype. Tell me your story calls for submission on the writing from gender stereotyping. Registration are also open for the masterclass on social media strategy for new or aspiring authors. Let me begin with introducing the panelists in this evening. Our first panelist is Dr. Protim Sharma. He is Associate Professor and HOD of English at Digmukh College, Assam, India. He holds a PhD in Organizational Studies from Dibrugarh University and postgraduate diplomas in the teaching of English and journalism and mass communication. He is an editor, reviewer, translator, language consultant, communication trainer, speaker, and his research interests include language and culture, English language teaching, organizational communication, identity in migration, and ethnicity. He has been published in various newspapers, books, and journals, and a columnist with the Assam Tribune since 1997. Sir, welcome you to this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
Okay, sir. Our second panelist of this evening is Dr. Somrita Ganguly. She is a professor and an award-winning poet and literary translator. She was a Fulbright doctoral research fellow at Brown University and is an alumni of University of East Anglia's International Literary Translation and Creative Writing Summer School. Somrita served as a judge for the PEN America Translation Prize and the Kamala Das Poetry Awards and an expert reader for English Pen Translation Grant, National Endowment for Arts Translation Grant offered by U.S. Federal Government, and National Translation Award U.S. She is currently the HOD of English, Maharaja Marindra Chandra College, University of Calcutta, and has worked on literary translation projects with Room to Read, USA, and National Center for Writing, UK. Somrita edited the first anthology of food poems, Quizilla and Other Adventures, and translated three stories, Sarat Chandra Chattopadhyay, Fire Song, Shakuni, and The Midnight Sun, Love Lyrics and Farewell Songs, among other works. Ma'am, welcome you to this evening. Let us begin our today's session. So first, I want to ask you both, and I will come each of you one by one. Can you share your initial thoughts or personal experience on the traditional association of blue with men and pink with women? How has this perception evolved over time? Sir, first, can you share with us any personal experience?
Okay, so Sri, thank you. Thank you for having me here on this prestigious platform. Uh, the topic is that there is this blue for men and pink for women. To talk about that, there is sexism in color across cultures. We see talking about this, well-known gender stereotype, blue for men and pink for women, or the color divide. Let me tell you that this association of gender-specific color is relatively new. uh, we associate color white with peace, right? Red with danger, green with all clear. Likewise, pink has long been associated with women and blue with men, but mind you, it's not since very long. Um, uh, and let's consider the color pink. Our association of the color pink with girls, remain so strong that we feel that it has always been like this. Pink was actually considered as gender neutral color, like white, uh, until somewhere between, say, 19th century or early 20th centuries, till World War. And in a time before the Barbie or Disney princess helped create this deeply rooted stereotype, what we have today. Both men and women that time wore blue and pink back then. And pink was, in fact, a broadly worn color by European, bourgeois, bourgeoisie, and in the 18th century. And not only that, but European aristocrats also used to wear, powdery colors as a symbol of class and luxury. And pink was actually considered more appropriate for boys that time because it was considered the sub color of red, more regarded more powerful than blue. Red had this masculine implication and association with some military prowess. Uh, I'm talking about 18th and 19th centuries. And over time, we see that department stores, they started recommending gender-specific colors, mostly pink for girls and blue for boys, thanks to branding and marketing we have today. And coming to industrialization industries, we have blue-collar jobs for men. So we can. That's how I think blue is associated with men now. And talking of stereotypes, we see the extension of this, beyond color, to include gender stereotyping in other aspects. Like we have the glass ceiling effect, the barrier, the invisible barrier women have in their career, or then you have and breaking of the stereotypes also we see in films like Dangal, where the father trains daughters to become champion wrestlers. So that's how we have stereotyping and also breaking the stereotyping both here in our context today. And we feel we are born to a progressive time where gender issues are a thing of the past. But we have come a long way from the days of overt, gender discrimination. But I think the differences still exist in our minds. That's all what I have to say for now. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, how do you explain it or how do you experience it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Joyashree, for having me here for that warm introduction. And hello to everyone that's joined our session on the live stream. Uh, Gender is possibly one of the hardest things to talk or write about. Um, my PhD is in literature and gender studies, so I was looking at female athletic bodies and their representation in sports literature for my PhD. So, this is something that I have been working on academically for quite a while now. But aside, you know, apart from that academic engagement, I think gender is something that everybody has an opinion on, which is also why it's so complicated and complex. And it's something that you experience in your everyday reality, right? Um, we're here now in March 2024. And we still live in a world that finds it quite radical to acknowledge and accept that girls and boys, women and men, and everyone else in the spectrum can look or act or behave in any way that they choose, instead of complying with a set of rules and regulations that define genders, right? So, usually the gender spectrum, um, uh, and it's probably erroneous, this is usually represented by a straight line with XX and XY as the, two dots at the starting and end points. But I think thinking of gender as a Venn diagram instead might help us better understand, uh, concepts, relationships, and roles. I know that our audience also includes young listeners. So I want to break this topic down to its basics for this introductory part. Blue is for men and pink is for women. So I want to start with the basics, that gender is a construct. What I mean by a construct is that it is something that is created. It is not innate, it is not natural, it is not organic. It is fluid, it is flexible, it is malleable, it is learned, it is acquired, and it is imposed. Yeah, that there is nothing about your body physiologically or psychologically that dictates that you need to behave in a certain way, emote in a certain way, walk, talk, eat or interact or communicate or travel or dress or undress or perform anything in a certain way. Yeah, in short, that there is nothing about your body and about the sex organs that you're born with that suggests that blue is for men and pink is for women. And as Dr. Sharma just pointed out, uh, these colors were assigned somewhat arbitrarily, and they were assigned uh, through different codes. There is the cultural code, there is the religious code, there's the social code. But this assignment in itself was very random and arbitrary, right? Um, because if we go down to the roots of it, people are born with a certain body, with a certain anatomy. And we're living in an age where people might choose to to modify this anatomy that they are born with during their lifetime. Um, so there is one aspect of gender that is physical, um, and then there are other aspects of gender as well, the emotional, the behavioral, right? We see these different patterns. Um, and then this body that you're born with interacts with other bodies around. And this interaction sort of leads to an intersection, which we then go on to call or see as somebody's gender identity. Yeah, so this is what I'm trying to say, that this gendered identity is entirely flexible. It can remain the same throughout a person's life if the person so wishes, but it can also undergo a world of change. And gender expression, so that was gender identity. And then gender expression um, is how a person would like to be seen, would like to be perceived by the world outside, or how the world interacts with this projected gender identity. Right? So the body then is just the physical aspect of gender, but gender as a spectrum would include much more than just the physical aspect. And I think the sooner we understand it, the sooner we accept it, the easier it will be for us to treat people with respect. People that do not fit into our binaries of she and he, man and woman, girl and boy, people um, who want to break free from these watertight compartmentalizations, right? Um, and and I think what I'm also trying to suggest is that all these components of gender, the body, the identity, the expression, all of these components of gender are changeable. That today, people's experience of gender, and I actually shouldn't even say today, because if we go back to our own roots and history, in India at least, uh, we come from a culture where gender falls within a range. Um, we might or might not have the time for that discussion. At what point did we then adapt to this strict binary? We'll see as we go later into the conversation. But today, for certain, even if we don't want to go back to our old roots and traditions, gender definitely falls within a range and can no longer be limited to this binary expectation, right? But honestly, because you said you asked us to talk about our personal experience of gender as well, um, I find this frustrating in so many ways. I find a conversation of this nature very dated, very frustrating. It angers me, it triggers me, that we are still engaging with something of this nature is a shame, right? Um, that we are still talking about something like blue is for men and pink is for women. Of course, we understand that, when we talk about this coding, we really are talking about a code. We're not talking just about the colors per se. We're talking about gender roles, gender norms, gender expectations. And obviously, that debate is far more critical than just the color coding. And as I was saying earlier, this has its roots in culture, in religion, in family structures, in the educational environment that you come from, the society that you come from. Now, in terms of my personal experience, I am very, very fortunate to come from a line of women who have defied expectations. My mother, my mother's mother, um, and these are the women that have raised me to be who I am. But I also come from a father from whom I learned what it means to be a feminist. Um, if mommy's making dinner, daddy's doing the dishes. If mommy's waking up at 5 to clean the house before getting ready for her work, daddy's waking up even before her to do the laundry and to get me ready for school before he leaves for work. And this is something I've grown up watching, grown up observing. So this is not alien to me. In fact, it is alien to me if somebody imposes gender roles. If somebody says that it is, the kitchen is the woman's space. No, cooking is not a gendered role. As lots of people are talking about this now. The digital media has done a lot to open up the conversation. Cooking is a um, basic survival skill. Keeping your house clean is not the duty of the woman alone. It is a basic survival skill, right? So I've grown up seeing this relationship that my parents shared. That theirs is a partnership. It's a relationship between equals, a relationship which is based on trust and respect and hard work and shared dreams and goals for themselves and for me. So I've always been encouraged to do things my way. I do not take instructions too well. I have been taught to make my voice heard. I've been taught to walk into rooms which are seen as exclusively male domain. From my choice in clothes to my choice in men, um, uh, my choice of profession, my choice of finances, all of these choices that I've made in life. I've been heard and I've been supported. And, I've been taught to say a no and how to say a no, when to put my foot down in the face of blatant discrimination or insubordination, um, when to take instructions, when not to take instructions, when to have the courage to leave a room, to walk away. And there are so many of these things I've been able to do because I knew I had a support system in place. Uh, it sounds like a cliche when I say my parents gave me wings to fly, but they did. And they did not give me only the wings, they also gave me the parachute. I could fly because I knew that they stood there with the parachute should I fall. I had the permission as a woman to make mistakes because I knew I wouldn't be defined by that one mistake or any of my mistakes. I knew that I have people around me who trust me enough to learn from these mistakes, to grow, to do better. Right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that you need champions to cheer you on in life. My parents have been those champions for me. My partner now is my champion. He's a Jewish American man who is very secure. He's happy for me. Genuinely, he's happy for us. He's cheering me from the sidelines when I'm on the field playing. He doesn't want to take the center stage when it is my moment. somebody that's genuinely interested and invested in my writing, in my career, in my happiness, but in our happiness as a unit. So, when they say it takes a village to raise a strong woman, and I think I count my blessings when I say I was fortunate enough to be born into such a village, which is why, I cannot say that I have broken any glass ceiling, uh, because there weren't any ceilings for me to break. Some people had already done that for me. My parents had already walked that walk on my behalf, and they had also cleaned up the shards of broken glass so that my walk is easier. So I think, when we talk about something of this nature, blue is for men, pink is for women, gender expectations and stereotypes, I think it is also important to share stories like these, because we need to send this message out into the world that change is here. We are in 2024, change is here, and that change was always here. Yeah, so the question is, when are you going to adapt to this change? Because if you don't, if you hold on to your reified notions of genderhood and sexuality from like the 17th century or the 18th century, you are going to rot and you are going to be rejected by this brave new world that we are building. Right? Um, Obviously, I wanted to start out with that positive note, but there are problems. um, when do the problems arise? The problems arise when the world around me is not as free or as fortified or as emancipated to accept me in my essential form. Right, so I've heard this conversation among my mothers, I'm hearing this conversation now among my friends, that it is not enough to raise strong women. You have to raise men that are strong enough to accept these strong women. Yeah, so when the world around you is not as free or as fortified, the problems start showing. For instance, uh, you know, mm, so nobody at home was commenting on my choice of clothes or my makeup, or I'm putting on red lipstick, but there might be a pesky poet somewhere that will come and say, oh, but she gets the publishing deals because of the way she looks, or so there are problems. We have to address them, and we have to rise above them. Every woman that I know around me, older than me, my age group, my students, essentially we live in fear. Yeah, what sort of fears? Especially, in an urban landscape like ours, if you're taking an Uber ride back home, if you're taking a yellow taxi back home, Kalipili taxi back home, if you're traveling by the metro, by the local train, by the bus, there is this constant fear where women are taught to sort of withdraw into their spaces, to make themselves invisible, to not draw attention on themselves. Don't wear that dress because somebody might be looking at you. Don't wear that, don't wear the red lipstick because somebody might be looking at you. So, very often this advice is also coming in the guise of concern, that I worry about your well being, which is why I'm advising you to, behave in certain ways. But that is my issue with advice of this nature, that my well being is not entirely and only and exclusively in my hands. None of our well beings is in our hands alone. That we do not live in these insular pockets, that we are constantly interacting with the world around us. So, your well being is not just this sort of vacuum sealed packaging, where if you do everything right, 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 everything right will happen to you. That's not how it works. I mean, we're not going into that conversation right now. Again, hopefully, during the discussion, it might come up. If you think about incidents of molestation or rape, etc., it has very little to do with the woman that is in that situation. It has everything to do with the perpetrators, right? Anyway, That said, I did not want to talk about the problems right at the start, because I did want to start on the right note, and I will return to that, on the note that that change is coming, that the future is here. It is unevenly distributed at this point in time. I am very aware of my privilege. I've got a certain social and cultural capital. I've got a platform. Not everyone around me, man and woman and child, is fortunate enough to have that platform, to have that space. Having said that, I still want to insist that the future is here. And the future is feminist. The future is for everyone. It'll take time for this message to get distributed evenly, but it is happening, and I'm hopeful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. And I completely agree with you. There is parents' role is very important, but parents are also part of society. So if some parents push their child to wear pink or blue right after the birth, so it's not really their fault, because society itself projects that pink tax, blue tax on the in every product, not only baby products or adult products. So it is everywhere in the society, and we cannot exclude or include anyone.
No.
So, sir, in that note, I want to ask you, how does the stigma surrounding men wearing pink contribute to the reinforcement of rigid gender roles and expectations among the youth of today? How does the discussion around men wearing pink intersect with the broader conversation about toxic masculinity and the policing of men's behavior and expression?
Uh, well, Joyashree, it's a good question. I was listening to Dr. Somrita. She rightly said that the gender identity is the fluid one. It's changing, ever changing, and yes, the question, coming to the question, the stereotypes about gender, can cause unequal or unfair treatment because of the person's gender. Anyone behaving differently is almost treated as a social deviate. There was talk of the sociological field, the gender polarization and all that. But when you are asking about the stigma about men wearing pink, uh, yes, the stigma around men wearing pink has been diluted a bit. It's watered down. I think, in the sense that men these days they do wear pink with no hesitation or inhibition whatsoever, uh, as long as the pink uh, is of a relatively lighter shade, or mild shade, I think. Like the baby pink or peachy tones, like that. And however, to wear bright pinks or is still something most men need to think twice about. Because not because they have a personal dislike for the color per se, but because the colors are associated with being effeminate or queer in the context of men. Um, uh, right, Dr. Sumitra? I think that is my feeling. And then, the associating of specific colors to specific genders, uh, though is arbitrary, we talked about that, it has become synonymous to gender expression. It has become very pervasive, and it affects the way we perceive the constructs, construct of gender. So we perceive the constructs of the gender. It restricts the freedom of choice and expression, I think, and it conditions people into policing themselves. I think, does that answer your question, Jayashree? Yeah.
Yes, sir. I also agree with you that the color nowadays associated with gender expression, especially if a man decides to wear a pink just any reason. Most of the friends and all they call him, maybe he's not straight and all. So it has been wrongly projected, I guess. And yes, it is the lighter shades of red. If we like talk about red and white, if we mix together, it comes as pink. So if red is not associated with any female gender only, men can also wear. So why only pink? Ma'am, I want to ask you the next question that given your extensive experience as a literary translator and poet, how do you navigate and challenge gender language and imagery in your work, especially when it comes to translating texts that may contain English gender stereotypes?
Yeah, thank you, Joyashree, for that question. I'll come to this. Just circling back to something else, as Protim was talking about this, it played in my mind, and it struck me right now. So I have to work on this a little bit more. But I think this color coding problem, etc., that we're talking about is also in a way a class problem. What I'm trying to suggest is that the working class does not have the time or the luxury to think about, oh, am I buying pink, am I buying blue? I'm going to buy something that is sturdy, I'm going to buy something that is economically efficient, I'm going to buy the first thing, or I'm going to borrow, or I'm going to pick up from somewhere. And then, as has always been the history, the upper classes have never had to worry anything about anything, right? Everything that they wear becomes a statement. So if you wear pink, it's a statement. If you wear blue, it's a statement. If you wear unicorn or rainbow colors, that's a statement. It's really the problem of the middle class then. Yeah, people like us, people like you and me, who are so invested in these codes, in these messages. Again, as I said, this struck me now as I heard you speak. So I have to work on this a little bit more in my head, study societal patterns, but I'm sort of beginning to veer in that direction where I think we also have to think about uh, gendered expectations in conjunction with class roles. So just wanted to put that out there because otherwise it would slip. I would forget it, and then I probably wouldn't be able to come back to it. Going back to the question about languages, so the languages I work with are Bangla, Hindi, and English. Now, Bangla, as you know, very interestingly, is not a gendered language per se, in the sense that when I use a word like she, we have a very important work in Bengali that is called she. English is not able to accommodate that. Yeah, because she is not it. She refers to a person. Is it he or is it she? It's a question we need to ask. And then I work with Hindi, where everything is gendered, like French. Yeah, even your non-living objects, so table and chair, doors and windows, everything has a gender. Um, so English sort of is like this midway between the extreme of Bangla and Hindi, because we have the two genders and then we have a gender neutral space as well. That is in terms of language. Our language is obviously very, very gendered, right? By our, in this case, I mean the English language, the language that we are working with at this point in time. In terms of how do I subvert it, little choices that I make when I'm teaching. This is like an age-old thing. When people write letters, official letters, when we teach younger children to write letters, they will start with "Dear Sir." Because it is so difficult to imagine that the person you're writing to in this position of power could also be a woman. So a little subversion there where I tell them, I do not write dear sir, I write dear madam or sir. And if I'm confused, just like for ages people just wrote dear sir, I just choose to write dear madam now. And then you go figure out, because I do not think a strong man will take it as an insult at all to be misaddressed as madam in a situation where the person does not know. How do we address God? It's a change that we have to bring about in our daily language practices, that you have to remind yourself that when you're referencing this higher being is not necessarily a he, that this higher being can be referred to, ought to be referred to as she, if at all, and obviously in current times as they. right? So, yeah, there are ways in which you can work around gender. It is important to start the conversation early because you will realize that young learners learn very fast, and gender norms, expectations, whether it's on a linguistic level, social level, etc., this is all acquired. Somebody has told the child, we're talking about pinks and blues over here. There is nothing about the child at an age when you cannot also anatomically really differentiate the child. If you're looking at the child from a difference, you cannot tell if this is a baby girl or a baby boy. And yet we've put these norms and expectations, we've imposed them on the children. So if we can do that, and if we can force a child to learn those expectations and codes, we can also help the child unlearn and help ourselves unlearn. So the unlearning process starts with us, and then we pass it down. In terms of some of the choices that I make, in terms of as far as my literary translation projects are concerned, so far I've had the good fortune, actually I won't even say only the good fortune, I've made the choice to translate works um, where women are strong, fierce, emancipated characters. Because this is the message that I want to send out to the society, that if I am translating a work, that if I am using my platform to share this story, I want this to be a story that actually should be shared with other language readers who do not have access to it. Because what is the point in me sharing the story about this woman getting beaten and bruised, and just sort of reiterating the gender stereotypes that everybody is already aware of? I want to do different, so I've made those choices. As far as my poetic journey is concerned, I wear my identity as a badge. I wear it proudly. I have heard poets around me shy away from identifying as feminist poets. I'm not one of them. While in my introduction, I will not say I am a feminist poet from India. If somebody asks me, asks me what my ideology or my politics are, I do not shy away from using this word. Feminist, because these days it's almost like it's a word that comes with a lot of baggage because of the negative connotations associated with it, because feminism has been diluted in so many ways. That it's man bashing, and that there's all of these skewed ideas of what feminism is. So I also try to set that narrative right, that feminism is not about trying to bash one gender or another, trying to put down one gender or another. It is just trying to reclaim space for a gender that has traditionally and historically been marginalized, that has traditionally and historically been left out of rooms and conversations and politics, etc. So it is seeking equality, it is seeking my right to choice and my dignity. And it is not just my choice. As you know, patriarchy is not something that affects only women. In fact, it very slyly affects men as well. That if a man does want to wear pink someday, there will be some bloke standing out there and laughing, ha ha ha, ye kya kar rahe ho? अरे आप तो कितने effeminate हो, अरे तू लड़का है कि नहीं, मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता. All of these stupid jargon that you hear around you on a daily basis. Feminists are fighting for that as well. When I'm saying that I do not want to be defined by these arbitrary set of rules, I'm also saying that a man should not be defined by those same set of arbitrary rules. That this is an experiment I try to carry out with my students in the class. I teach in a co-educational institute, and I ask them questions where the men come up with their own challenges and the own burdens of expectation that they are bearing, from homes, from families, from neighbors, etc. So each set of people, every individual has a challenge. And my approach to feminism is that we are trying to get rid of these challenges for all, man, woman, and every other person. So I try to reclaim that word also for myself. It's not a dirty word, it's a political statement, it's an ideological statement, it's a lifestyle. So that's how I navigate around these issues through my writing.
Thank you, ma'am. And The first aspect that you have highlighted, the class aspect for the gender stereotyping is also interesting because in India we often pass down our old clothes to our houses, so they don't not only discriminate what to wear because they don't have that choice or source to choose from. So that's a very good aspect. Sir, except this working class aspect or language aspect that ma'am have highlighted, in your experience, how do cultural or and regional factors influence perception of gender stereotypes and color association, particularly in the context of language use and communication?
Well, actually, the language, as Somrita was referring to, you know, the gender, the sexism in languages, not only in English but other languages as well, is in the form of male generic terms used to refer to both genders. She talked about the dear Sa, that comes instantly, and I would like to point out before I answer your question is that we have been using from long since long time is that everyone should do his duty. We say nowadays it's been replaced by their duty. And then uh, S oblique he, she. uh, it was a movement to replace he with she, but now it has been replaced, by they. They must pay something like that. And chairperson, we all know. Instead of chairman, we prefer to use chairperson these days. And there we have actor instead of actress, and we have the poet, not poetess. I like that, and in 60s and 70s, I don't know. I think around that time there was a debate, still I think going on, is history or her story, uh, something like that. And then we and coming back to your question, it's on culture, right? Culture. Okay. The cultural factors, mostly the color associations, as I told earlier, is the Western constructs, right? Uh, in India, things have been rather fluid. Uh, our traditions have gradually been reduced to mere tokenisms, like after we stepped into so-called modern era. For example, men doing skincare or meticulously applying sunscreen or moisturizer on a regular basis is often laughed at, or ridiculed. But on a wedding day, we smear not only the bride but also the groom with haldi, and what do you call it? There's a henna and mehendi also sometimes. It's applied on the hands and the feet of the groom as well. But the same act of men, painting hands and nails otherwise on a normal day is next to unthinkable in our uh, day. These influences, these things, influence our perceptions on gender stereotypes and color associations. As language we have already spoken about, and and there, as I think Somrita was referring to uh, this, um, the queer, not queer. I have an example of a film. It's called Fireflies. It's called Junaki Purwa in Assam. There, what happens? This boy, Janu, he lives in a remote village in rural Assam, and dreams of getting an operation to become a woman. The villagers mock him for his femininity and treat him as an outcast. In a world where you are made to deny your identity to protect your family's reputation, Janu has no chance at living freely. So the freedom is at stake for some. Uh, and the cultural, as you just asked, the cultural factors, I think these are the influences which we uh, see today. Yes. So does it answer your question, Joyashree?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And the way you have described that haldi, that uh, no one have the problem to apply on men, or no one question generally, but that same thing, if yellow color is applied on nails, or if sunscreen are applied on face of men, that are ridiculed. So that's a very good aspect actually. Ma'am, now I want to ask you, though this is not an Indian practice, what are potential psychological effects on children when they are assigned gender roles even before birth through events like gender reveal parties? What role do parents play in challenging or reinforcing gender stereotypes through their choices, such as hosting gender reveal parties, choice of toys, clothes, anything from childhood?
Yeah, I know. I mean, in India, we don't have gender reveal parties. We do something worse. We just kill the child even before it's born, um, or after it's born, right? Earlier, which is also why we do not have the gender reveal aspect anymore, because it had to be instituted as a law because of the rate of female feticide. So now we've taken as a society to female infanticide. So I don't know which is the worst of the two problems, a gender reveal party or, the other South Asian variety of what we are doing with this. I mean, I'm trying to make, you know, jest of a situation which is actually very, very grave. What is the psychological impact? The psychological impact is damaging. You know, research came out a few years ago and it said if you talk to plants gently, if you talk to animals gently, they thrive in the environment. They grow and they flourish. Imagine if you did the same with a baby from the time the baby is born. Yeah, instead of constantly saying no, instead of constantly detracting, instead of constantly stopping the baby from exploring her natural talent and ability, how that child would flourish. What a beautiful society we would have been able to create. But of course, we are not there. We are still in this world of, you know, uh, pastel pinks for baby girls and ice blue for baby boys. If you go into these stores, um, but again, and I'm going back then to the class thing, if you go into these stores in the shopping malls, will you see these demarcations? If you go to a heart, we have the concept of heart in Bengal, which is like an open market. People come from certain parts of the city and they try to sell their wear in these urban spaces. Or if you go to the rural areas, they have open hearts, open markets. I do not think this color coding really exists over there because, as I said, for the working class population, you do not have the luxury to think about something as inane, as stupid as this, right? But it exists where we are currently, and that is the irony of it because on pen and paper, in theory, we are the more emancipated, we are the more educated, we are the more advanced. So it makes you question if that is true also. Yeah, how did this color get assigned? How was gender given colors? Why is it criminal for a man to wear pink? Why do shopkeepers find it shocking that parents might want to buy shades of blue or black for a newborn girl? And this blue pink binary, it spills beyond the shade card, right, into other avenues of life. If you look at toys, um, Protim was talking about the Barbie. We are recently living in what is called the Barbie era. We're living in the times of the Taylor Swift era. They are really helping to further this conversation, to bring us out of these reified, rotting notions from the 18th, 19th centuries, from the Victorian times, to how the conversation should really be today. Because, Even a few years ago, toys for young girls were limited to toys of various kinds. Yeah, or yeah, I've received those toys as well, not necessarily from my parents, but and birthdays. These plastic kitchen sets, or these plastic DIY building a house set. Not really building a house, but because that is obviously the domain of the boy child. But you have these little houses, and you're making the bedroom, and you're making the kitchen. So I've got those gift sets as well. And then you'll go to the toy section for boys on the other hand, and you will see but that there are no limits to human imagination when it comes to toys for little baby boys. You will see everything: airplanes and trucks and buses and stethoscopes, cars, superheroes, guns, pistols, right? Anything, you name it, and it's there. Wild animals, jungle sets, and this is what you see adorning the shelves. So again, the question is, when did we come up with this really shrewd marketing strategy, dividing clothes and dividing toys and dividing food for girls and boys after, because there is no scientific survey that proves that one sex prefers, or one gender prefers, a particular kind of dresses and dolls over another, right? And as I said earlier, we are doing this at an age when it is difficult to even tell the children apart when you look at them from a distance. Then how did we start inventing these really complicated gender roles for them, right? And we have so many, because you were asking what is the psychological impact of this. There are so many little girls, little boys around us. The girls will grow up with the idea that they have to have long hair, and they have to have, wear certain kind of dresses with frills, and they have to take on female roles in these games that they play. And these then continue as they grow into adults. And then boys, if they ever, God forbid, wanted to grow their hair long or put on a hairband, they will have people laughing at them. Yeah, so girls are made to pine for pink. Boys are made to choose Spider-Man over Cinderella. Uh, and I mean, what can I say? It's clear, right, that the impact that this has is damaging on the psyche of not just these individuals, but our psyche as a society. We I deal, like Protim, I deal, because I teach in a college. I deal with young students. They are in their early 20s, and while in certain ways there are things that I can teach them, sort of help them unlearn certain practices, there are many things that I am learning from them as well. And this, the credit has to be given where it's due. A lot of this has happened because of this digital revolution that we've had today, right? And like anything which has its pros and its cons, if you can check the cons of digitization, the pros are very many. I don't have to work very hard to explain certain things to my students, because they've already seen influencer X doing something, or they've seen influencer Y, who is a body positive influencer, or they've seen a male makeup artist, or they've seen a male dancer who cross dresses and performs. They are aware of this reality now. So it is much easier for me to have these conversations with younger people than to have it with older people, because mostly the older people are coming and telling me, hey, but I don't understand this. Why should I call them they? Why should I call them they? Why should I use all of these strange alien pronouns? Because my name is Somrita. You will call me Somrita. I expect you to call me Somrita. That is the basic dignity and respect that I expect of someone. So if somebody, even if you don't have to understand everything, the world is complex, and we do not have to grasp everything, but we can grasp basic ideas of dignity and respect. So if somebody wants me to address them by a gender neutral pronoun, why is it so hard? If somebody wants me to be comfortable with them uh, wearing a certain dress instead of what has been prescribed for them, why can I not respect this person's need for self identity? That is the least that I can do. So if I don't have to, not everybody understands, and that is what I tell people, you don't have to understand everything. You do not have to understand the whole LGBTQIA plus spectrum if you don't want to. If you want to, there are resources. If you want to, there is enough literature in very accessible language today to help you understand. But if you don't want to get into the details of it, think about it as basic courtesy from one human to another. That I acknowledge your right to represent yourself in any which way you like, and I will do that much. I will do my bit. So, yes, again, as I said, going back to what we started with, it's a shame that we are having this conversation today. Also, very funny, also very stupid, because we are living in the times of the cyborg. We are living in the times of the AI. We are living in the times, we're living in times that are post truth, post human. Anybody can modify their body and their anatomy in any which way that they please. When I was growing up, we were taught that sex is constant, but gender is fluid, gender is constructed. Now, by the time I came to my 20s, I learned that sex is also as fluid as gender, that you do not have to live with the sexual identity that you were born with for the rest of your life, that you can transform yourself and your body in any which way that you want. So we are living in times that are so fluid. So to limit ourselves to this skewed imagination of color coding, I think is inane. For people that are having difficulty accepting what we are saying, what we are discussing, difficulty understanding, as I said, it's all right. We can take baby steps. Let's start with the step of extending respect and courtesy to one another.
Sure. This is a never-ending debate actually. This related to clothes and toys. As we always like, if we go to a shopping mall, we always observe that men's clothes is much cheaper than the women's section. And also, if we look at the baby clothes, the 5-year-old baby shorts, like a boy short, is much longer, and the same 5-year-old girl short is much shorter. So it is projected by the society only. We don't have any choice if the market is not produced to that according. Uh,
Yes,
Yeah,
Somrita was
my
absolutely.
last
talking about.
question to both of you. Yes,
Yeah,
haha, sure.
Somrita was talking about the toys. The children that grow up with a specific gender in our society. But what if they start liking the toys not meant for their gender?
Exactly. Exactly.
There comes the fluidity.
Exactly.
Yeah, Joyashree.
Absolutely. Yes. My last question to both of you is what psychological effects do color coded gender stereotypes, such as associating blue with masculinity, pink with femininity, have on individuals' self perception and behavior, regarding of any age? Are there notable examples of films, fashion, and design industries breaking away from traditional color norms? First, said you.
Uh, I don't have many examples to cite. But yes, I was referring to a film where the boy wanted to be a woman, which and then he was mocked at, laughed at, and all that. And there are some texts and films where the characters' preferences find expressions. Like there's the film called Blue is the warmest color, where there's the protagonist is confused about her sexuality after she breaks up with her boyfriend, and she gets attracted to a beautiful woman with who sports a funky colored hair, and she sets out to find true love. That is in that film, and then again, there is some. There's a sting operation, I think, in a film. It showed. I think the name of the film was Aligarh. where about the sexual orientation of a professor, and some uh, characters don't get the liberty they deserve. Uh, I don't have many examples right at the moment, but I think that's what I had to say. Thank you. Yeah, Somrita.
Yeah, Protim, thank you so much for bringing those two examples, two of my favorite films, which also, people will think she problematizes everything, but you have to. That is the whole point of people like us who have been given a platform by TMYS. Thank you so much, Coral and TMYS, for giving us this platform. If we don't problematize, if we don't question, then who will do it, right? This is how we initiate conversations. I love those two films. Two of my favorite directors, some of my favorite actors, and yet my problem with these films is, and a whole series of these films about alternate loves, about alternate sexual identities, is that they are always ending in death or disaster for these protagonists. And my question is, why do we always have to kill off these characters or give them this amount of sadness in life? Because society is doing that anyway. Our legal codes are victimizing these people in real life anyway. Can literature or the arts not imagine a future which is safe and secure for people of this nature? Right. What one other film, so in the same genre, and yet that does a beautiful role of sort of breaking some of these formulaic patterns, is it's a French film by Celine Sciamma. It's called The Portrait of a Lady on Fire. It is a storytelling triumph. It's set in the past, and yet his vision is so futuristic, so forward, so beautiful. I strongly, strongly encourage anybody who has access to the film to watch it. It really shows us how, when people are allowed to reclaim their narratives, to retell their stories, to rewrite their histories, and not have all of this written by somebody else, what beautiful stories they can produce. You know, so yeah, and again, going back to, because you asked about the psychological impact, as we've discussed, I think my sort of concluding observation on this is going to be that anything which is taught, anything which is learned, anything which is acquired can also be unlearned. And we have to take on that challenge for ourselves and for those around us, to question what has been taught, to take the best of that teaching, reject the repressive, and learn newer things as we go forward.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I and our viewers will surely watch those three films, obviously. And I think that psychological effects that you both have talked about, and there are not very notable examples from the fashion or design industry, because they always project as male or female, these two major gender or sex, what you were talked about, not very gender fluid in that sense, the fashion industry. They don't make
Sorry,
clothes
I had actually
specific
missed
to
that part of the question.
LGBTQ perspective or anything like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, no,
Mhm.
no, 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 sorry. No, I just
Yes.
said that I had missed that part of the question because I
No,
think there
no.
was a with my internet or something. Yeah, actually, in a very ironic way, I feel that the fashion industry, that fashion, as in high fashion, has in very many ways broken these gender stereotypes. If you look at the ramp, if you look at what is being worn, the clothes that are being carried, it is fairly fluid
Mhm.
to a great extent. If you think of somebody like, let's say, a Karan Johar, who is sort of, splashed on the TV all the time. We are made to consume him, his fashion. So he's made certain choices which are not typically male, for instance, right? So this is true of film industries, I think, across the board. They have the platform and they are doing a lot to sort of influence fashion as well. in terms of making it more fluid. I think it is taking time for that to seep into, it's like the butterfly effect or trickle down effect. It will trickle down. It hasn't yet entirely, but I think we are seeing changes. One example of this is funny and it's also so futuristic. I love it. I had somebody walking next to me the other day, and there was somebody walking ahead of us, and you couldn't tell from what this person was wearing and how this person was dressed if this person was man or woman. Hair was also cut short, and clothes were of a certain nature. Um, so the person next to me, sort of commented that, it's so hard to tell people apart these days. Is she a woman? Is he a man? And I said, the thing is, you don't need to tell them apart. This is a person walking ahead of you on the road. That is all that it matters. You don't go and punch the person. You don't go and elbow the person. Don't shove the person, and then let the person be.
Yeah, let the masculine and feminine energy be in
Absolutely,
perfect
ma'am.
balance,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Sir, do you want to say anything like regarding this breaking away from traditional color norms, especially in fashion and design industry?
No, I don't have much idea about fashion industry. I'm sorry for that. But I have written something here. I mean, I got
Okay,
a quote from a lady. Okay, let
sure.
me find it out. Yeah, uh,
Mhm.
anonymous lady who says that the most attractive quality about a man is the ability to be soft. I think it is underrated, and not many men think it's muscular enough. But it's the most muscular thing you can do is embracing your femininity and that softness inside you. That's what I found that quote somewhere to end it. Yeah,
That's
yeah. So
the
readers,
most perfect and beautiful lines to end our session today. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And thanks everyone for the very insightful conversation and for your time this evening. Tell me your story calls for submission on the writing prompt. Gender stereotyping registrations are also open for the masterclass on social media strategy for new or aspiring authors. We hope to hear from you soon. Till then, stay well, stay happy, stay together, and good night, everyone.